I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners. All commissioners are present. We did meet in executive session where we discussed matters of real estate and personnel. We'll have a pledge of allegiance followed by a moment of silence. And the pledge tonight, I would ask that Commissioner Sanderson lead it for us.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody, to our regular meeting of November. We'll kick off with citizens' comment. Does anybody wish to address the board tonight? Okay, hearing none. Approval of minutes from our October 10th regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And our workshop meeting of October 24th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Recognitions, nothing there. Moving on to reports of committees. Building and Grounds, Commissioner Rothrock.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an update on our solar project. The solar installation on this building and the police building is nearly complete. The interconnection with PP&L is scheduled for next Tuesday, so we are soon going to be generating solar electricity. And the panels will be placed on the public safety building next week, so it's moving along.
That's great.
Also, our staff has obtained estimates for upgrading the sound and the visual aids here in this room. And there's going to be, we haven't scheduled it yet, but we're going to have a meeting of the Buildings and Grounds Committee to take a look at that situation and what those costs are. So we may be coming back with a recommendation for the.
Okay, and that would be primarily for this room?
Both this room and the conference room. So there's some audio, video components
Okay.
that we're looking at for the conference room as well. So,
I've got to say, you're coming in much clearer.
Am I?
The past couple of meetings.
well, again,
Maybe
that's
it's your own projection?
perhaps, but
Speak from the diaphragm.
All right, let's move on.
I think we've actually borrowed a piece of equipment.
I was going to say that I think it's attributable to the borrowed
We have
piece
a
of
loader
equipment as
amp back
opposed to.
there.
Yeah, okay.
That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, very good report. Budget and Finance, Commissioner Sanderson.
Thank you. As we discussed at the last public meeting, the presentation is as it was. We had a very thorough discussion about the line items and no changes since then. The recommendation is in front of you unless there is well, we'll get to comments. So I move to adopt the preliminary budget.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and this would, as required, place the document, make it available for public display. The budget would be acted upon at our first December meeting.
Under normal advertising procedures.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else?
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Public Works, Commissioner Napper.
Yes, Mr. President. The Public Works Department report for the month of October. The Public Works installed new signs and repaired damaged signs throughout the township. Grass cutting was conducted in numerous township lots, parks, and grass berms along the road. And the clean out of the Edgemount Firehouse and clear gutters and repaired the roof. Public Works personnel received training on the new leaf vacuum from Golden Equipment Company and is currently demoing new sweepers. Street sweeping and leaf collection continues. For more information, see the township website. And as a final note, Mr. President, the Public Works Department assisted the Shade Tree Commission with planting of trees. And this ends my report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Health and Sanitation, Commissioner Robarczyk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Penn Waste will collect yard waste on Saturday, November 16th. They will not be picking up yard waste in the month of December, so residents are strongly encouraged to place any remnants of yard waste out for collection on November 16th.
Thank you. Administration and Personnel, Commissioner Napper.
No report, sir.
Thank you. Police, Commissioner Engel.
Thank you. Chief?
Yes, members of the board, we have some activity tonight as it relates to hiring of police officers. So my first request is to decertify the existing civil service list.
Move to decertify the existing civil service list.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Johnson. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Second request is to certify the new civil service list that's before you and
Move to
signed by the
certify the
chairman.
new civil service list.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next, do these one at a time. I recommend that we extend a conditional offer of employment to Ms. Caroline Robinson.
Mr. President,
Commissioner.
I move to offer Ms. Caroline Robinson a conditional offer of employment with a starting date, if the conditions are met, starting date to be January 2nd, 2020.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
My second request is that we extend a conditional offer of employment to Mr. Cedric Parchment as the same.
Mr. President,
Sir.
I move to offer Mr. Cedric Parchment a conditional offer of employment with a starting date with the township being January 2nd, 2020.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. It's always fun when you can do something like that. Fire and EMS, Commissioner Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. President. I first want to announce that the Public Safety Committee held a meeting about 2 weeks ago. We discussed, among the items that were discussed were assistance to firefighter grants, safer grants, some changes in equipment, and various other items. And I believe our next meeting will be after the new year. We meet roughly once a quarter, so. Just wanted to say that Progress Fire Company has started an elementary school recess monitoring program at Sarah Lindemuth Elementary School, Sarah Lindemuth Anna Carter Elementary School. Rescue Fire Company will begin their program at Thomas Holtzman Elementary on December 10th. And firefighters will participate in recess events twice a month at each of our elementary schools. And it's a great way to introduce, our youngest residents to firefighters and the folks that keep them safe. So as the temperatures dip, we're in this, cold front from Canada. We just wanted to offer the following safety tips. Ensure every heating device that you have has clear space all around it. If you heat anything with anything other than electric heat, you should have a carbon monoxide detector. Candles and unattended cooking have caused major fires in the township this fall. This is something I addressed before. And please be aware of distractions when you're cooking or lighting candles or anything else. It's advised as the weather gets colder and people go to shop that you back your car into a parking space. Should you have a dead battery, it is easier to access if you back your car into a space. And finally, Santa will be in Susquehanna Township in the Progress and Edgemont area on December 14th and in the Uptown area on December 22nd. And to date, Susquehanna Township has had 1,113 fire calls. It's roughly, if you're doing the math, that's roughly 3.5 a day. Mr. President, that concludes my report. And so I just want to say thank you for everything our volunteers do, particularly now as the weather turns. Our volunteers don't say, hey, it's too cold to go out there. They answer the call no matter what the conditions. So, our thoughts and, prayers are with them to keep them safe and thank them for what they do. That concludes my report.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Recreation, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a 2019 summer report here from Ms. Michaels. I said it was pretty lengthy, and I'm sure we could have this on the website, or we could have this emailed.
Is that the recap of the summer programming?
It is.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. Yep.
It's pretty lengthy.
For the record.
But yeah, we'll enter this for the record, but I'll just say that it was a well-attended program.
Correct.
And actually, there's a lot of good information in here, and just a little bit too much for just a quick, but we'll make sure everyone gets it.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that concludes my report.
It was a great event. Was it last week over at Edgemont?
Oh, that's right,
You want to talk about that a little bit?
I can talk about that a little bit. So last week, the Chris Handles Foundation actually took over the old Edgemont Fire Hall building. And the first thing, I want to thank the foundation, because that gave us an opportunity to continue to have that building as for use in our community. So I want to thank the Chris Handles Foundation, and I'm glad you actually mentioned that as well. He's planning on some certain programs, and I don't have a list of the programs that he's planning on having. However, I do know that next Monday, or this coming Monday, I don't have the date, from 6 to 8 p.m., they will be giving away turkey dinners. And it's free to the community, and that's at the Edgemont Fire Hall, the old Edgemont Fire Hall. I'm not sure what the new building will be called at this point, but he had a really nice event last week, just opening up to the community. Did I get everything?
Yeah. The room was it was packed.
It was packed, yes.
And, like I said before, there was a lot of love in that room. I mean, went for a couple of years without it being fully and freely available to members of the community, as a resource. But now it is, and it's in great hands, and it's, I think it's a great partnership.
I
Great kind of
agree.
partnership that we're able to enter and make sure that resource is available to the community.
That's true. Well, and also, I'd just like to thank our solicitor, Mr. Mike Miller, for your part, and of course, I got to thank my fellow commissioners for agreeing and thinking it important to keep it in our community instead of shutting it down. And even Mr. Dries, Fire Marshal Dries. So just thank you all so much for caring about our community and ensuring that it's here, for continued use for the community. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, Planning and Zoning, Commissioner Rothrock.
Thank you, Mr. President. There was a Planning Commission meeting on the 28th of October. There was one item on the agenda, which was the Department of General Services Annex, the hospital grounds we've been talking about. They're proposing to take a subdivision plan that includes 29 parcels, knocking that down to 16 by redrawing lines. It also talked about the proposed dedication of portions of the Azalea Drive and Sycamore Drive to the township, and some discussion of what the requirements would be from the township on that. They also, I was a little bit surprised because they said in this meeting, they intend to keep all of the parcels other than 4 of the resulting parcels. So they're only talking about transferring 4 parcels to the county. So that was a surprise to me. Maybe others knew that was what the plan was. Anyway, there were a lot of comments by staff and our engineer that needed to be answered, so the matter was tabled, no action. But it certainly is going to be taken up at future meetings. There was a zoning hearing board meeting on the 2nd of November, and there were 2 items on the agenda. One was Lisa Henry, which was a request for variance to allow a front porch roof to extend into the setback. That was approved. The second item was Brent Miles, or Harrisburg Gardens, which was an appeal of a notice of violation that had been issued due to a major expansion of a non-conforming use. There was a lot of testimony, took a lot of time, and there were a lot of folks there that wanted to speak. Kind of ran out of time, I guess, so they continued that until the next zoning board meeting, which is on December the 4th. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. All right, bids and agreements. Number 1 is the 2020 Humane Society Domestic Animal Protection Services Agreement. Mr. Kratzer.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, before you for your consideration this evening is, as the President noted, an agreement between the township and the Humane Society of Harrisburg area relative to domestic animals. This primarily deals with domestic dogs and domestic cats. Again, it satisfies many of our obligations under Pennsylvania's dog law. Just quickly, as it relates to some of the financial aspects of the contract, first to note is the per animal fees are flat in 2020, so they are consistent with the per animal fees that were in the agreement that you had approved in 2019. Our deposit is up slightly, but that deposit, again, is essentially an escrow deposit. So to the extent that money is not utilized in that fund, it's either credited or refunded to us. And those deposited fund fees are based on half of the contract amount that we paid in the prior fiscal year. So we would recommend your consideration of entering into this agreement with the Humane Society of Harrisburg area. Be happy to address any questions that any members of the board may have.
Mr. President, I'd make a motion that we approve the 2020 Humane Society Domestic Animal Protective Services Agreement.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the uptown drainage and sanitary sewer improvements.
So I'm going to ask Bill Kick to come up to the podium. We're going to go through these items in detail and obviously answer any questions that the commissioners may have. But this, we are at the conclusion of a project. These are kind of the finishing aspects, and there's some reconciliation that's occurring as part of these change orders. And then ultimately, there's a final application for payment. There will be a small residual amount. Again, if you recall, you had authorized some additional work on Montrose in terms of additional inlets, but this will largely conclude that project. So Bill's going to walk through and provide a summary of each of the items, and we'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Manager Kratzer and Mr. President, Commissioners. It was about 3 years ago, I think, I stood in this room and led a town hall meeting with your residents and fielded questions, and I know to some of you it might seem like it's been a lot longer than 3 years, but it's been a privilege to serve the township in this regard. It's been great to work with Commissioner Kratzer in her home ward, and just appreciate the opportunity.
We didn't tell you.
Sorry, Commissioner Varchek in her home ward.
Are you too old now?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
It has been a long time, hasn't it?
Things are getting fuzzy and they're all running together.
The older you get, the worse it gets.
So what I have here tonight is 7 change orders, 12 through 18, and application for payment number 11. Now, the reason there are so many change orders is because we haven't had an application for payment from the contractor since February of this year. So this is covering the entire Edwin Avenue work area, and then some leftover items from Montrose and Parkway that are all being picked up on this application for payment and the change orders. 2 of the change orders, one of the change orders you approved, I believe, in concept at your last meeting, which is the drainage improvements along the curb line on Montrose Street. That's change order number 18. Change order number 17 is just a reconciliation of the bid quantities, which are estimates, with the actual measured quantities that were constructed in the field. So change order number 17 reconciles all the quantities on the application for payment. And then I'm happy to give as much or as little information as you want on the rest of the change orders, but I'll give you a small taste of each one, and then you can tell me if you want more. But change order number 12, this relates to sanitary sewer laterals that were in conflict with the proposed storm sewer. These laterals were inaccessible at the time that we were researching the existing system during the design phase. We knew that they were inaccessible, and when we excavated, we found that they were in conflict with the storm sewer system, so we had to make adjustments, and this compensates the contractor to make the adjustments that were necessary. Change order number 13 is another sanitary sewer conflict. Again, this system, because of its age, a lot of it was inaccessible, so the precise location and depth of some of these facilities could not be precisely ascertained during the design phase, and adjustments had to be made. This was another similar situation, And there actually was, this was a piece of Orangeburg pipe, which was in pretty bad shape, that had to be excavated to a greater extent and then replaced with newer materials to facilitate an adequate connection. Orangeburg pipe.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, there's quite a bit of it actually in the uptown drainage basins.
You know what
It's,
that is? It's like tar paper
Yeah.
rolled up.
That, yeah, if you think of a roll of tar paper that you would use on your roof, that's what the pipe looks like. It's actually sort of laminated layers of this tarry paper, and over time, with settlement and just use, it takes on water, it breaks down, it crumbles, and so there was a lot of that on the site that we had to connect to.
Very popular in the 50s
How
or
did
even prior to
anyone
that.
That's
think
when
that
a lot
was
of this was
ever a
built,
good
yeah.
idea to put underground?
It was because of the war.
Yeah, that's right. It was more than 50 years probably. But
It goes back because the
1950s and 40s.
war effort took all the metal,
Oh, okay.
which is why you see a lot of houses that are connected to the streets with stormwater, like your sewers, not sewers, storm sewers, your downspouts. All that was shunted toward the street under the grass, under the lawn.
Yeah, so you see
And
the
they,
spout
if you,
coming.
they collapse after time, and then, of course, they flood the yards and they flood basements, but it's tar paper.
Okay. Thank you.
We also saw cast iron pipe that would come to an angle, a horizontal change in direction, and then a piece of this Orangeburg pipe would be cut in half and laid over top of that joint, and that was the only joint that was actually made between the two sections of pipes. That's led to people who've had building sewer issues, and it was interesting to see the way things were built back then. A little bit different than we do it now. Okay, change order number 14. This was actually the result of, there was some, Susquehanna Township Authority had some evidence on file. It was closed-circuit television footage of I'm going to call it a mystery manhole out at Front Street. There was enough suspicion that a condition was missed in the design that we were instructed to dig for it with Susquehanna Township Authority's knowledge and guidance. We excavated, and what we concluded after a lot of excavation was that the video, closed-circuit television video, was mislabeled. The location was incorrect. But it would have been serious enough that someone could have had surcharging in their basement, that if a condition had been missed, it would have been very serious. So we did that excavation, compensating the contractor for the excavation that he did for that work. Change order number 15. This tidies up a lot of contractual issues related to claims that were filed from the first two work areas, and the final work area is Edwin Avenue. There were numerous, I should say, claims filed regarding the first two areas, which we rejected a significant sum of, and towards I guess it was this past spring, through the guidance of your solicitor, we had a meeting with the contractor to try to work out some differences, and we were able to negotiate an equitable agreement which compensated them for some, but not all, of what they had requested initially. That's a significant portion of the amount of, it was an additional $15,000, and ultimately you're paying out a total of $95,000 for those claims that they had requested in the first two areas, many of which were rejected. Then there is a asphalt escalator increase in the amount of $36,000 because of the amount of time that had elapsed and the fact that we expanded the scope of the project. We felt it appropriate to compensate them for the increased price in liquid asphalt, and that's reflected in item number 2 there. And then item number 3 is a similar circumstance where price of corrugated metal pipe went up significantly, and the reason there was such a long duration between the time that they quoted it and the time that they constructed it was because of the 8-inch high-pressure gas main conflict that occurred on Edwin Avenue. You may have been familiar with. Much of that expense associated with that conflict has been reimbursed to the township by UGI. So this change order number 15 encompasses all of those changes. Change order number 16. This is related to a 4-inch high-pressure gas main conflict on Edwin Avenue, and it's in the amount of $130,521. Manager Krasser and I met with UGI 2 weeks ago, presented information to them regarding this conflict, which is costing the authority a sizable sum of money, and we have requested compensation from them to reimburse the authority for this condition, which was not their fault and which the contractor had no ability to anticipate. Essentially what it was they had a high-pressure gas main that they intended to line with a PVC liner to improve the quality and integrity of that line, but they realized that they would not be able to deliver the capacity that they needed through a smaller diameter line, so they direct buried a brand new line, and when they did, it was about 20 inches off of the center line of a brand new sanitary sewer main. So when the contractor excavated, he had to support continuously the new gas main the entire time that he did his excavation, and he had additional stone that he had to put back into the trench, and it resulted in a lot of additional work. We were advised of it very early on. We tracked the costs associated with it. This $130,000 is reflective of that cost that was tracked. So we are seeking compensation from UGI. They said they would consider it. They've asked for a little bit of additional information, which I have compiled this week and intend to send to them tomorrow, and we'll see how that goes. But we have approached them for that cost. 17 and 18. 17 is the quantities reconciliation change order. So when we prepare bid estimates, when we prepare bid documents, the quantities in the bid documents are estimated based on the design, and when they actually construct, the quantities are measured, and at the end of the contract, the quantities are reconciled. That's what's happening in change order number 17. Change order number 18 is for the work that you approved at your last meeting on Montrose Street at the frontage of 213. So that's the summary of the change orders. Application number 11, you have, it looks like this, there's HRG cover letter on it, breaks down the amounts that are due by the township and by Susquehanna Township Authority. And if you look at the very last sheet there, if you're interested, you can see the amounts that were paid by each entity for each payment application, including this current application, and then the balance remaining. Susquehanna Township Authority's balance after this evening, assuming that you approve this application for payment, will be $0. The township's balance remaining will be $29,650. That is, again, the work that's going to occur on Montrose Street. I think that about covers it.
Yeah, just one item of note. The authority at their meeting on Tuesday approved all of these change orders and the application of payment. So the work that's attributable to, that's listed as the authority share has been approved by the authority on Tuesday.
And I should just recommend that as a procedural matter, you approve change orders before you approve the application for payment. Otherwise, the application for payment amounts do not work, because these change orders are included in this application.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
These contracts, a number of them, not all of them, ran well over the completion date. Is that true?
That's true, yes.
And has the contractor been assessed liquidated damages for that?
No, the contractor has not been assessed liquidated damages, and there were a number of reasons for that. Most notably, your very well qualified solicitor's colleague in Pittsburgh, Neil O'Brien, who is a contract litigation attorney, looked at the various facts of the project, and what we realized is that liquidated damages, though they may be written into a contract, there are always two sides of that story. Weighing all the evidence, we were not advised that it would be impossible to assess liquidated damages, but that it would very likely end up in a court battle that could be very lengthy, costly, and we were advised to negotiate. So what we did is we took the liquidated damages and used them as a negotiation tool against other claims that the contractor had against the township. And the result was some of what I just went over in these change orders, and liquidated damages were essentially put to the side for a more equitable outcome for both parties that did not involve court litigation.
Mr. Kick, if I might. Commissioner, you may recall that in executive session previous to this, we had briefed the board in our negotiations over some reductions in the amounts claimed by the contractor. And as Mr. Kick indicated, the discussion of liquidated damages was thoroughly researched, professional advice given to the township and to HRG, and that there was a leverage of our claim for liquidated damages used to reduce the amount that the contractor was seeking, all of which inured to the benefit of the township. So while there is no doubt that the project went longer than anyone would have liked or foreseen, there were a lot of factors in that, and the issue of liquidated damages, the taxpayers in the township got the benefit of those damages in the shape of reduced claims from the contractors. So
I had the same question, and while I can appreciate it, dollar-wise, it wasn't worth litigating. It certainly doesn't help motivate the contractors on their next project in the township to complete the project on time, to not leave for months at a time with work unfinished. But I certainly appreciate the logic and the reason, but I had a couple questions. As far as the increase in amount because of the cost of materials going up, was there any consideration given to the fact that the time that elapsed between the time the project started and it finished was of the contractor's own making? So they went away for months at a time and extended the project into the next year. So perhaps that's why the costs were more? If they had come to work like they were supposed to and showed up every day when weather was good and worked, then they would have finished the project sooner, when presumably the cost of materials would have been lower.
The answer in short is yes, that was considered. And the increase that is being presented in these change orders is a negotiated increase, recognizing that the contractor had some responsibility in the delays. However, we also recognize that much of the delay, which not only resulted in an increased contract duration, but a change in sequencing of work, was directly attributable to the 8-inch high-pressure gas main conflict on Edwin Avenue, which UGI itself acknowledged through reimbursement to the township for the cost of that change, that they delayed the contract and the contractor by a significant amount. So
Well,
it was
the contractor, regardless of any conflicts, the contractor literally went away for months at a time over the summer working on other jobs. They were in Lower Paxton working instead of Susquehanna. So, I mean, that was their fault and nobody else's. It wasn't because of any reason, just their sheer will not to come here and work. So I just want to make sure that's being taken into consideration when they're getting paid more because prices rose as they went to other municipalities to do work that they were supposed to be doing in Susquehanna Township.
Yeah, it was considered, and what I meant by it being a negotiated amount was we did not settle at the price that the contractor requested for the increased amount. We negotiated an amount that was mutually agreed upon that was less than what they claimed they were due.
Well, that's good to know. And then my other question was, and I know this was discussed, I apologize, I wasn't able to be here at the last meeting when you discussed Montrose. And my understanding was, and correct me if I'm wrong, the drainage was an issue because of how the work was performed by the contractor. I mean, if the road, this is just me thinking as a layperson. So when you're constructing a road, you're constructing it so that it drains appropriately. If the road doesn't drain appropriately, what does the township have to pay the contractor to go back and fix the grade so it drains appropriately? Shouldn't that be something they should be doing?
Well, yeah, and you're partially right.
Without us paying them because that's how it was supposed to be done the first time?
Yes, and in fact, there were 4 areas on Montrose Street that were identified as unacceptable work, which the contractor did repair at their cost. This additional section includes a portion of roadway that the contractor did not touch, as well as a portion of the roadway that they did do work on. The way we decided which areas were to be replaced were essentially we watched the area after rainfall events. Nate Spriggs went out and looked at the area after rainfall events, and others from our firm did when they were in that area working. Whether this was the correct standard or the standard that was most appropriate or not, we're not sure, but what we decided was that if an area dewatered within 2 days, it was not identified for correction. And the reason we decided on 2 days is because there were areas in the neighborhood that were not within the work area that held water for much longer than 2 days. So this is a flat area, as you know well, and water lays in this area. We also got photographic evidence from pre-construction videos and photographs, as well as Google Earth, that suggests that there was some ponding in this area. Now, the property owner has indicated that the ponding is worse, but that's subject to his interpretation of the conditions before and afterwards. So we did make the contractor repair at his expense the areas that were determined to be unsatisfactory. And the other areas we were compensating him for, because this was an area that was not identified as one of those.
Okay. Thank you for your explanations. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Can I ask you a question about change order number 16? You mentioned the gas line, orange gas line, and then did they do suit testing? Did they have to go back and then reopen that street again to install more?
No, what happened here was, it was simple. We did utility coordination before the project was bid. We held a utility coordination meeting at which we distributed contract drawings to all of the utilities, and we had them complete PennDOT 4181 form, which identifies the location. You're familiar with this because you're on the turnpike.
How do you know that?
Well, I know things. So we had them complete 4181 forms because it's convenient and everybody knows how those work. And they did not identify this gas main as one that would be replaced. They identified it as one that would be lined. They were going to basically slip line it with PVC and leave the cast iron main in place. After they came up with that approach to upgrading this line, somebody somewhere did a calculation and decided that they could not deliver the volume and rate of gas needed because when they slip lined that cast iron, they were going to decrease the diameter. At that point, they decided they needed to replace the main, and when they did, despite the fact that they had room between the existing location of the main and the curb line to put a new main, they opted to put it closer to our work area on the opposite side. And actually, it was an amount of about 4 feet closer. And we have photographs of the sewer main location to the new trench, the center of the trench, and it's about 20 inches off of the center line of the sanitary main. Now, the reason that happened is because the sequence of the contract got reversed. Instead of starting in work area 1, the contractor had to start in work area 3 because of the conflict with the other high-pressure gas main that was not determined until we actually went out there and painted one-call marks in the street. While the contractor was working on Parkway, UGI was on Edwin burying a new gas main, and there were no crews and no inspectors in the area to notice that they were doing it at the wrong location. So nobody even got a chance really to say stop until the end of the work season for the first year on Parkway and the contractor looking at what he was going to do the next year. And he said, hey guys, you put a gas main right here. He claims that he told them not to do it at some point, that they were alerted to that it was happening. And he said, you can't do that. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't have any direct knowledge of that. What we did was we met on site. UGI obviously did not want to move their brand new gas main. They did acknowledge that it would be impossible for the contractor to install manholes in that proximity to this new gas main. So they did do relocates around the manholes, but they wanted to leave the rest of the main in and sort of see how it went. And the notes from that meeting occurring are actually in your change order packet.
Okay.
And we have
ended up digging that up twice.
Yeah, right. So when the contractor excavated for the sanitary main, the gas line would sag, the gas trench would fall into the sanitary trench, and now all of a sudden he's using twice as much stone, he's got twice as much paving width at the surface for restoration, and he's supporting a gas main continuously for over 1,000 feet. So it made a significant impact on his work and his production. And by this time, we had already worked in 2 other areas. We had worked in Parkway and we had worked in Montrose. So we knew roughly how much sanitary sewer they should be able to build in a day. And we were able to compare that rate of production with the rate of production in this area.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Sorry.
Mr. Kratzer?
Yes.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Is there a preference as to how these should be considered, one by one or as a group?
Yeah, if you're comfortable taking them as a group, that would be fine, to take the change orders, and then ultimately act on the application for payment.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So,
What's your motion?
To accept change orders A through G.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, we have a motion, second. Is there any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to accept application payment number 11.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for your thorough explanation.
Thank you, certainly.
Very good.
Next is public safety radios.
Yeah, we just wanted to provide an update on this. Again, I guess the only decision point for us as it relates to this issue, we've been talking about financing structure the last couple meetings. Our recommendation is for the board to consider proceeding with a 5-year structure. If you recall, there was a 3-year, a 5-year, a 7-year, and a 10-year. And based on those durations, obviously there was a difference in annual payment. Again, as you're aware, for this year's local share grant, we had submitted an application in the amount of $360,000. There's been no decision on that application, but I think we anticipate that we'll be successful in some fashion as it relates to it. But that again remains to be seen. But so I think what we're recommending, or I know what we're recommending at this point, is for you to consider a 5-year term, and just wanted to get some direction from the Board of Commissioners on that issue. Ultimately, what will happen, because there's a series of documents that need to be executed, agreements, and there needs to be some coordination with the solicitor. All of these items would be back before you at your December meeting. So just wanted to see if there's any objection to proceeding, I guess, with a 5-year duration for financing these radios.
Need a motion?
What is the life expectancy?
So the life expectancy,
10 to 12 years.
10 to 12 years, yes. So again, 5 years is there's still half of the useful life remaining. And again, we were trying to balance the annual financial obligation under the lease payment with recognition that, we can continue to submit applications for external funding to offset this cost. There would be no prepayment penalty, so to the extent that we get more than what the annual debt service is for this, or we submit an application for 2 years of debt service, we could do that. We've done that in the past. For example, we did that with the public safety building in the back, where we took 2 years of debt service, and that was the basis for our request. We could do that, and we would have flexibility. But at the same time, to the extent that we don't have external funding, we felt that the lease payment, which was roughly $102,000, would be absorbable, both in terms of the general fund expense as well as the fire fund expense.
I think we should move forward with the 5-year term.
Second. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ordinances, resolutions, et cetera. Ordinance 19-09, authorizing the incurrence of a maximum principal debt amount of $1.55 million with the Dauphin County Infrastructure Bank.
Yeah, so Laura Kurtz is here from Eckert Siemens to answer any questions that you may have relative to the ordinance. Again, if you recall, this was an application that we had submitted largely related to the rehabilitation of Paxton Creek Road, or Paxton Church Road, rather. The application was submitted consistent with your authorization. DCIB went through the process of I guess, a request for proposals from banking institutions. The successful proposal, my understanding, is from PNC. The indicative interest rate in that proposal was 2.33% for 10 years. However, as you know, through the DCIB program, there's a county subsidy. So the county subsidy is 1.75%. So the net debt service interest rate for us would be around 0.58%, so a little bit over 0.5% to be able to borrow this money through the Dauphin County Infrastructure Bank and complete this important project. So you'll notice, and Laura can talk about this, but the ordinance is structured right now, is reflecting 6% as a maximum interest rate. Laura can tell you why that is the case. But again, the actual net interest rate that we're anticipating is closer to the 0.58%. So, I don't.
Good evening, Mr. President, Board of Commissioners. My name is Laura Kurtz. As Manager Kratzer mentioned, I'm with the law firm of Eckert Siemens, and we serve as bond counsel to the county. So what I've prepared for you tonight is the ordinance, and Mr. Kratzer did a great job of summarizing it. It authorizes the issuance of the guaranteed revenue note of the township. It is a general obligation pledge in addition to a pledge of your liquid fuel revenues. It authorizes the project to move forward, your transportation-related project. It accepts the proposal from the county to purchase your note, and it appoints PNC as the lender of the county's note as your paying agent. It authorizes all of the action that is necessary to be taken by the board officially to authorize the project and move forward. If you do enact this ordinance tonight, there are a few documents that you'll have to sign that would be submitted to the Department of Community and Economic Development. I know you're familiar with that process. You've issued debt in the past. So, Mr. President, if you enact the ordinance, I have a few documents for you to sign following the meeting. I believe the county will take action to accept the PNC proposal next Wednesday on the 20th. After they do that, we will move forward with closing on the loans, and that is projected at this time to occur on December 23rd. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
I looked over the material and it showed a 6% interest rate, and I thought, well, that's awfully high. We shouldn't be paying that kind of interest. Can you explain the
Yes.
difference between what
So-
was shown in paper and what we're actually getting?
Yes, Commissioner. So that is just for illustrative purposes for the Department of Community and Economic Development. So when you file for your debt proceedings, you have to file at a max rate if the rate in the proposal is not yet confirmed. And as Mr. Kratzer mentioned, it's an indicative rate. PNC is one of the only banks that will provide you with an indicative rate instead of a final fixed rate. Because they allow themselves for some flexibility that might occur within the market between offering the proposal and closing. In my experience with PNC, the rate has never changed. It has stayed at the rate that they present in the proposal to you. Barring some sort of major action in the markets or some major issue occurring, I believe that the rate would remain at 2.33%. But because you cannot go higher than the rate that you seek approval for with DCED, we put that max rate in there that PNC quoted as 6%.
But it will be a fixed rate after closing?
Yes, a 10-year fixed rate. It will be around 2.33% with your subsidy about 58 basis points. So that could change by maybe 1 or 2 basis points, but I don't expect any major changes. Okay.
Any other questions or?
Thank you.
Need a motion?
We would need a motion, yes.
Move to approve the ordinance?
Second.
Second, comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Cone Road Hotel, the Ava Group requests to reduce the site improvement guarantee for the Cone Road Hotel. Ava Group from $5,500 to zero.
Yes,
Rubric is reviewed and
Mr. President, members of the board, the Cone Road Hotel is the hotel on the north side of Cone Road adjacent to the Your Place restaurant, across from First National Bank and the complex off of south side of Cone Road. There have been a series of improvement guarantee reductions dating back to February of 2017, the most recent of which was done on August 20th of this year, and we're recommending that the site improvement guarantee be reduced from $5,500 to zero. The project is completely finished.
So moved.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any comments or questions?
Bob, is that the residence inn or no?
No.
Okay.
It's, well, it's the flag is, it's I think it's a Marriott-related flag, but it's
Right.
it's right next to,
Yeah, it's a
Your
residence.
Place. It's a residence inn, but
Where we were tonight.
Yeah, it's where, yeah, exactly.
it's not, the signage isn't that obvious.
No, it's
That
not.
way.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
I think we participated in a ribbon cutting there tonight.
Was that not the, was?
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Unfinished business?
Mr. President?
Yes.
I may have been remiss regarding, we need to schedule a hearing, budget adoption. Do we need to schedule the
I think we do.
final?
Yes, we
I
do.
think we adopted the budget, the preliminary budget. I don't
No,
think
you
we s-
you
We voted to
advertised.
advertise.
we
You
voted
voted
to
to
advertise, but do we need a hearing?
We need to set the hearing date.
Yes.
We do.
Yep.
Yeah, that's, yeah. I mean, I think the president referenced
Yes, it was
December.
understood, but I don't,
Yeah,
but in
okay,
the
go
past,
ahead.
we've always scheduled it as a hearing, I think, prior to the budget itself, meeting.
That's fine, yep.
Okay, so there we are. That was it. Just wanted to make it formal as part of the minutes. Thank you.
Manager traffic studies, do you have anything?
We do not, Mr. President.
All right, please, chief, do you have anything else? Mr. Brubick, you good?
Our report is in your packet, Commissioners. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you, hearing none. Law Bureau.
The Law Bureau has previously submitted its report. Just a word to Commissioner Johnson. Thank you for the recognition and our assistance with the Edgemont Fire project. I will say that when you're a lawyer, there are a lot of things that you do that are routine and humdrum. That was an exciting project. We're happy to have been able to pair with the township to reuse that. It's an example of what we can all do when we put our minds to it and put our shoulders to the wheel and move something forward. Everyone on the dais, Manager Kratzer, Ms. Logan, Mr. Dries, deserves a great deal of credit for bringing something back. I hope that we're able to maintain that, so thank you for that. Members, I would ask you to approve an agreement between an employee and District Council 90 of AFSCME that we discussed in executive session appropriately. So I'd ask you to make that motion, second it.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any comments? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
That concludes the Law Bureau's report.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dries, do you have anything? Thank you, sir. Thank you. School Board, Commissioner Fleming?
Yes, Mr. President. Just a couple of items in brief. The school district and Manager Kratzer, you may have more information on this if we need it. The school district has received grants for tree planting and a sidewalk from the Department of Community and Economic Development, and is going to move forward with installation of those items. And then just wanted to talk briefly about an event that the superintendent had on Tuesday night. There was the first of a few superintendent forums that Dr. Willis is planning to have. This one was held at the middle school. And she announced a new initiative that the district is going to embark on called Individualized Learning Experience, or Individual Learning Experience. And this has been tried in other school districts, and the Pennsylvania Department of Education is encouraging schools to go in this direction, and it's It's basically teachers meeting students where they are. The analogy she gave was, think about if you are in a physician's office and you are one of 27 patients that the physician needs to see, diagnose, and treat in 45 minutes with various ailments. That's basically the model we use for teaching, for public education in America. And so with that, she basically made the point that none of us would put up with that kind of healthcare system if we didn't get that individualized attention and from a physician. Why are we doing that in education? So in brief, the individual learning experience is going to be students will be grouped by skill level in the core subjects. So math, reading, science, and social studies. And so if a sixth grader is ahead of where they should be, and they could be in class with seventh or eighth graders depending on their ability, and a teacher will have students of like ability, and teach them at that level. As opposed to somebody who's maybe a couple of steps behind in the same classroom as someone who may be a couple of steps ahead, and then we're kind of teaching to the we're teaching to those students really that need to catch up and get on level with their peers. And that leads to boredom, apathy, and a variety of other things. So, it's a really innovative, interesting approach, and I just, I commend the district for taking that innovative approach to improve student performance. And so they plan to pilot this in the spring in the middle school, and they are going to assess. Students will be grouped by ability level, and they're going to use data to determine where that starting point is. So using assessment scores, teacher input, grades, and more. So they're basically going to take the data that they have, build a profile for each student, and then group them as they should be in each building. So again, they're going to start a pilot in the middle school in the spring, and they're going to see how that works with plans of rolling it out district-wide in the 2020-21 school year. So again, I commend the district for recognizing that some things need to change. The way we've done business is, I've said this, professionally. I work in education advocacy, and it's the reality of our public education system is you could have someone come back from the 19th century, sit in a classroom in 2019, and they'll know exactly how to handle themselves, because we have not changed the model in more than 120 years. Students are still sitting in rows, in lines the way they were back then. Another thing she mentioned is the science curriculum. We insist on a science curriculum being biology, chemistry, and physics, in that order. Does anyone know why that is?
Alphabetically?
It's alphabetical.
Yep. That's what the nuns taught me.
And we're still doing it. So, nobody's made an assessment of whether that's the right approach. It's just what we've always done. So again, I commend the district, and looking forward to it as a parent, with a child in middle school. I'm really interested to see how this works out. And again, just really glad that they see that we could be doing better, and they're taking steps to do that. So I commend them.
Commissioner?
Yeah.
You said there's going to be a series of meetings to discuss this?
Yes.
You know any of the dates going forward?
So I could check that. I know the next meeting is going to be at the high school. I do not have a specific date. If I can find it here in the next couple of minutes, I'll shout it out.
In like the months November, December, you think?
Yes. It's going to happen. I believe it's scheduled to happen in the next couple of weeks. Just need to find it here.
Even if viewers, who are watching this might want to check it online or something, just to be able to get information going forward.
Yeah, and also, just wanted to say, Dr. Willis brought our attention to the fact that there is a survey on the district website for parents to take as well. So I encourage you to go to the district website. It's right there on the homepage, in the district news section, and take the survey about how you think the district's doing. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
We also got some good news on the school district front, or they did, but it's our good news too. They succeeded in their CFA grant for $170,000, which will mean a new sidewalk.
Yes.
On Elmerton Avenue. Been pushing for how many years, Fred? Long time. Long time. Yep. All right, thank you. Indian Wheels.
I have no report, Mr. President, on Indy Wheels, but I have something brief for Shade Tree. The volunteers of the Shade Tree Commission, along with township staff, planted trees in front of residents' homes as well as township parks during the month of October. As always, we thank them for their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Forgot authority. Mr. Sanders.
Thank you.
Communications,
No report, Mr. President.
Parks and Recreation, pretty well covered.
Yeah, we covered.
Okay. Any new business?
Mr. President,
Yes.
in front of each of us, we have a map of the township with areas that are highlighted in yellow. And as part of the conversation the Budget Finance Committee had this year, and the township as a whole has been having for the last 3 years, is a proposal to address an ongoing problem in the township, which is to say that the township is a first-ring suburb. It is rapidly losing open space for development, and the township really has a strong incentive to encourage property owners, business, commercial, and residential, to improve the properties of the township. And this proposal in particular is roughly called LERTA, Local Economic Revitalization Tax Act, which would, in effect, allow property owners to improve their properties and over a period of time, 10 years, for example, pay the full amount of taxes on the improvement of the property. So instead of paying taxes upon $100,000 worth of improvement on your property in 1 year, you would pay taxes on $100,000 of improvement on your property over a period of time, let's say 10 years, 10% increasing per year. So the general consensus, the discussion, which I think is timely, is proposed in front of you. The Budget and Finance Committee spent a great deal of time considering where the LERTA could apply. The yellow highlighted portions are rough approximations of where it would apply. Certainly, it is not intended to be a final map, but the main part would be the northwest and the south part of the township, which is where, roughly speaking, most of the original development was. And then in the northern part of the township, north of 81, there are spots which are commercial development areas, which would focus exclusively on business. My suggestion is that the township should follow up in implementing a LERTA ordinance for both residential and business properties, because the county in prior years has indicated that it would follow the lead of the township in pursuing and implementing this ordinance and encouraging people to improve their properties for both business and personal use. And even if it didn't include the third party, which would be the school district, it would really give us an opportunity to develop a track record of reinvestment in our neighborhoods. And 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as they say. Between the county and the township, it would really, I think, give people a reason to live, work, and play, as they say. And fairly, I think, treat them so that they don't have to bear the burden immediately of doing something good for their properties, for their neighborhoods, and the context of the community at large. Which is why I'm presenting this to you tonight for your consideration. My ultimate goal, I would like the township to adopt an ordinance beginning next year, and then, of course, approach the county at the time to implement a LERTA that which would affect neighborhoods in the township. All of this, of course, is open to discussion. You may have a different idea of which neighborhoods might be affected, which commercial zones might be affected. But that's what's in front of you right here. Give you an idea of the proposal, the agreement of the Budget and Finance Committee, and open the discussion for the board at large. I'm not asking for an adoption tonight, although that would be cool. But we may be in the next, November, December, we could come to some conclusion and then approach the county and see where it goes from there. I'd love to hear your comments on it if you have any. If not, we'll follow up on this in future meetings.
Mr. President, I support Commissioner Sanderson's efforts. And just to highlight what he was saying, it would be incentive for folks to reinvigorate some of the areas of the township that are underperforming, vacant properties. We have several strip mall type shopping centers with vacant storefronts. And if an ordinance such as this could perhaps encourage someone to do something with those shopping centers, help increase our tax base too, if we bring up the values of those properties. And I know we talked with the school district in the past, but last we spoke with them, we were talking about a blanket LERTA for the entire township. I think perhaps they'd be more amenable to targeting blighted properties or older areas of the township as opposed to the entire township.
I'd like to echo Commissioner Rabarchik's remarks and say that we enacted a 10-year comprehensive plan this past year, and I think this type of tool would be vital in helping to push that kind of a comprehensive plan forward, talking about especially in those older neighborhoods, whether it's a commercial development or what have you, encouraging them to renew, to add value to township real estate. So I certainly would support this proposal as well.
Sounds like an item for year 2020.
Thank you.
Unless the solicitor has some draft language you'd like to share with us.
Not on me, actually.
Since there seems
In my
some-
car.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
On me, no.
But they'll be going out, right.
Leave your wallet.
Listen, I have 3 teenagers. You can have my wallet. There's nothing in it.
I would then, under encouragement, ask the commissioners to submit any edits to this that you might consider. Certainly, we wouldn't want to encourage the application of alerta to open space, a green space. So there are some minor edits there. But I know in the past we had considered some draft language, and Mr. Kratzer, if you would work with staff to develop, perhaps with HRG, Mr. Grubik, to develop some really clear boundaries here about which parcels would be affected. Maybe next month or next meeting, regardless, we could have draft ordinances and a draft map to apply.
Absolutely, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Very well, Sean. Any commissioner comments to?
Yeah, Mr.
Roger?
President?
Yes.
I'd like to commend our Highway Superintendent, Nate Spriggs. We're in the midst of our leaf collection, and he initiated a new program where the leaves get picked up the day after our trash collection, which makes a heck of a lot of sense. And I don't know about anybody else, but I haven't gotten one complaint compared to in the past about leaf pickup and this and that. I think it's a great idea and it's working out real well. I just want to thank you.
My only complaints come from the Ninth Ward.
We fixed that complaint today. Right, Mr. Spriggs? Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Nate.
Geez,
It's a rough time of year, but you're doing a great job.
you're a friend.
Mr. President,
Yes?
just a brief commissioner comment. I would like to thank my colleagues in wards 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 for being reelected to serve on this august body, and look forward to continuing to work with you in the years to come. So congratulations to you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
One comment, sir.
Yes.
This is the last one. This is for the renaming of Pelham Road or.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that went over excellent.
That was awesome.
Appreciate Mr. Spriggs and Township Manager and everyone who did that. It's a big hit over in the Ninth Ward. Thank you.
Really is.
Mr. President?
Yes.
This is a brief comment. Rescue Fire Company 37 will be holding their annual breakfast with Santa on Saturday, December 14th from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. at 3701 North 6th Street. The cost for breakfast for children under 3 and under is free. 4 to 11 is $5 and 12 and over is $8. So please consider stopping by for breakfast with or without children and supporting our volunteer firefighters.
All right, thank you. What's the date again?
December 14th,
14th.
Saturday, yeah.
Santa Claus is coming to town.
Right. No other comments?
Comments.
All right. Want to pay some bills?
Mr. President, I move to adopt the report of bills paid in the amount of $1,494,945. A lot of fours and nines there. 19 cents.
Second.
Second, any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We are out of here.